The Nintendo Wii will always be remembered as one of the most innovative consoles of its time, pioneering motion controls and redefining how we play games with the revolutionary Wiimote controller. It lacked one key feature its contemporaries had at the time, which was HDMI output. Consoles like the PlayStation 3 had it at launch, and the Xbox 360 gained it in a revision. Today we're going to fix that. There are various ways to add HDMI to your Wii. While premium mods like the AVE HDMI and Electron Warp HDMI adapters exist, they aren't practical in South Africa due to cost and or shipping limitations. Instead, I'll be using this affordable Wii to HDMI adapter that I picked up locally on Takealot, South Africa's version of Amazon. This adapter will allow us to get 480p output, making the Wii look decent on modern displays. It's not the best option for graphics purists, but it's a great middle ground for those of us who play the Wii for its fun and not its fidelity. So let's dive into how we'll turn this budget adapter into a permanent internal mod for the Wii. So before we begin, let's talk prep. My Wii is soft modded and I highly recommend that you do this too. Mods add software enhancements that complement this hardware upgrade. If you're interested, please check out Blaine Locklear's videos on modding and Good Vibes Gaming Guide on the deflicker filter through USB Loader GX. These mods are optional but can make your Wii experience even better. Here's the plan. Number 1, we're going to disassemble the Wii to HDMI adapter, identify the multi-AV output pinout, after which we're going to disassemble the Wii, wire up the adapter and obviously put it back together. Right, let's get into it. I will be using a spudger to open up the Wii to HDMI adapter, and you can use a flathead screwdriver as well, but since I have a spudger ready, I'll just be using that. Now that we have the adapter apart, I just put some flux on the connector and I'm going to bring in my soldering iron just to free the pins on this side of the connector. You don't see me do this, but I put a knife edge on my soldering iron, and I do this so that I can flood the connector with solder, as I'll show you at this point in time, and then after which this will allow me to sort of walk the connector off of the HDMI adapter. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do now is just bring in my solder wick again, and I'll be using this just to clean up the pads on the HDMI adapter. At this point in time, I noticed there's a bit of a blemish on one of the pads, and I'm just checking it to make sure that I didn't damage the pad. I bring out my multimeter and see. I suspect it was connected to ground, which is sort of what the solder or the PCB is telling me, that it's connected to ground, and I confirmed that. Now it's time for us to jump onto the internet and try and identify some pinouts. So there's many images showing what exactly the pinout of the Wii is. This one, for example, shows us the connector, but I would not say it's accurate, so I wouldn't necessarily trust it. But I came across this post on the BitBuild forums, which shows what are the video and audio pins on the connector or the AV out that we can use to connect up our HDMI adapter. So what I've done, using consumables.org's diagram as well, what I've done is I have created this Wii to HDMI wiring diagram that you can sort of use. You just match the numbers up and then that would allow you to connect your HDMI adapter. So now let's get into disassembling the Wii. I'm going to give you guys a nice little montage, so enjoy. Alright, so now that we're down to the motherboard, what we need to do once we're here, we're going to just look at the connector and just reference our diagram and sort of see how exactly all this works. I'll just bring you guys a little bit in closer so that we can sort of figure out exactly how we will wire it up. But hopefully with this diagram, it should be okay. Now, just before we get into that, I'm going to give the Wii a quick little clean. Alright, so what I'll be doing is I'll be using my flush cutters and a craft knife to sort of just cut away at the plastic there at the beveled edge of the Wii. So you can see here, I'm just going at it, clipping the, I would say, supports of the Wii to just get things out of the way. Alright, so at this point I've made the cutout for the Wii. I'm sorry I didn't record that, I was just outside doing that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take wires, and of course we're going to measure our wires and sort of cut them up to fit into the Wii. And as you can see, I've cut away the insulation, and these are the other wires I'll be using as well. I'm just going to twist these wires up to prepare them for tinning, and then from there onwards we're going to solder them in. And here, as you can see, this is me tinning the wire. I've put some flux on it and sort of just waiting and hoping that the solder will flow. But hey, let's see what happens. And as we can see there we go, the solder flows in. And I'll just be repeating this for the next few wires. I'll just bring you guys in closer and then we will see what happens. Right, so now we're just going to wire it up to the HDMI adapter. As you can see here, I'm tinning the pads that I'll be using, and we're just obviously going to use our diagram. Well, I'm using it on the side here, you can't see it, but yes, to sort of know where I'm wiring things up. And I've sort of used color codes here to sort of tell me where and how will I be wiring up this adapter. So as you can see here, I ended up adding a bit too much solder. So I just brought in my solder rig here to sort of clean up the excess solder. And now I'm just checking with my tweezers to make sure that there are no bridges. I would recommend using solid core wire here to ensure that you don't have this issue. So we're just going to clean that up a bit and make sure that there's nothing going on there with my wire cutters. Now I'm just going to spritz on some alcohol and make sure that the connector is clean. This is a similar process where we're just making sure that we tin the wires and that they are ready for getting tinned and soldered onto the Wii. This is just one side that I've wired up so far. I've only wired up RGB at this point, but I will be adding audio, as you can see at this point in time. Now, just a quick tip here. You'll see me dipping my wire into flux, and this is just to make it easier for me to get flux on the wire for tinning. Alright, now moving on to the finished product, you can see here that it's all nicely wired up, nice and clean. The solder joints are shiny and there's no bridges, which is excellent. And I'm just making sure that the little dot that I saw in there was not a bridge. And yeah, it looks all good thus far. So now we're just going to whip out our multimeter and check for shorts, because maybe there's things that we can't see. Right. If the multimeter has like a 000 reading or anything lower than say about 10 ohms, it's definitely a short, or if it beeps. But right now there's nothing wrong, and yeah, pass the test. Now it's time for us to tin the points that we'll be using, referencing the diagram that I showed earlier in the video of how we will wire up this adapter to the Wii. And obviously all I'm doing here is tinning the necessary points into which I will be wiring the adapter up to. Now wiring up the adapter to the Wii, you can see me using here the wires that we've pre-tinned. So at about this point in time, I started getting frustrated with how the wires were stranding up or were separating from each other in the stranded wire, hence why I earlier recommended using solid core wire is probably your best bet. So you'll see me, I'm going to start just desoldering, or rather taking everything off after this green wire drove me to near insanity. So I just take everything off, rewire everything, and you'll see that in the next snippet here, which will just be the complete adapter being wired up. This little wire that I'm wiring between pin 8 and 10, this is going to enable component output to the Wii. If you combine pin 8 and 10, or you short them together, this will fool the Wii into thinking that there's a component cable plugged in, telling it to output 480p, which is essential for our adapter here. So yeah, I think at this point in time, we're about ready to test. I'm just bringing out my multimeter to test here and make sure that there's no shorts, but let's just go to the next clip where I will be testing for the first time. Alright, so I've plugged in the Wii. The light's yellow for some reason, but okay, let's try powering on the system and see what happens. Okay, turned green. I don't know if we'll get output. I see there's the Wii's light. Let me look for that button. Click it. Let's see, do we have any signal? Success. It was just a background, so I moved the ground over to there. Okay, cool, that's great. Alright, so at this point we're just going to start putting our Wii back together. The way you can see, I've wired the wires out here just by the beveled corner. I did not film, but you need to actually just there's a piece of shielding there that you need to break off so that the wires can just come out there. I also broke the piece of shielding under the fan. You do not need to do this. You can see just there by the beautiful ThinkPad. I did this thinking that I'll route the wires out from there, but in actuality that's not where I want. The wires wouldn't reach, rather they wouldn't get into the cutout that I had made in the top shelf. So what I had to do was just take things out in that corner there, the beveled corner of the Wii, and everything worked out well from there on. So now let's just continue with the reassembly. Okay, there we have it, the finished Wii. Let's do a bit of ASMR. Nice. So just some closing thoughts on what we have been doing here. This cheap mod allows us to use our Wii with HDMI. I mean, it brings our Wii a step closer to the modern age, and it's obviously just a fun project with a little bit of nostalgia. But yeah, this is just the beginning. I have big plans for this Wii, including USB-C power delivery and adding Bluetooth controller support. So just stay tuned for some future videos as we will continue upgrading this system. But yeah, until next time, thank you for watching everyone.